All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking an unprecedented wealth boom that is, quite frankly, completely rewriting the global rules of giving. The Asian philanthropy sector is undergoing a massive transformation right now, and it's bringing some entirely new philosophies to the table. We're talking about a region stepping onto the world stage with unbelievable financial power, and they are leveraging that power in ways that look very different from what we're used to seeing in the West. This isn't just a story about money either. It's a story about a fundamental shift in how the world's most complex social problems might actually get solved in the future. We've got to start with a staggering number, $33 billion. That is the projected philanthropic giving by ultra-high net worth individuals in Asia this year alone. To put that massive figure into perspective, it accounts for roughly 17% of total global giving from this specific demographic. So we aren't just talking about a slight incremental increase that you'd expect from standard market growth. No, this is a literal tidal wave of capital entering the social impact space, heavily driven by the region's explosive economic expansion over the last few decades. And look at how massive this shift really is. Asia now commands a 29% share of global ultra-high net worth wealth compared to the rest of the world. Just 2 decades ago, back in 2004, that number was sitting at a mere 15%. Think about what that actually means for a second. In just 20 years, the center of gravity for global wealth has moved rapidly and decisively east. And naturally, with that immense concentration of wealth comes a huge momentum for new, highly influential philanthropic power. To thoroughly understand this paradigm shift, we're going to cover 5 key areas: the Asian philanthropy boom, a uniquely Asian approach, the trust versus measure debate, the MEL framework explained, and finally, trust and measure. Okay, Section 1, the Asian philanthropy boom. Let's look at how this ecosystem is rapidly formalizing across the continent. Now, what's truly fascinating here is just how young this sector actually is. Fully 75% of foundations in Asia were created this century. Contrast that with the US and Europe, where it's only about 40%. Unlike the West, which is heavily populated by these legacy endowments created generations ago by 19th century industrial titans, the Rockefellers or the Carnegies, the vast majority of Asian institutional giving is a product of the post-2000 era. It's fresh, it's modern, and it's largely driven by newly minted tech and manufacturing billionaires. Because it lacks a century of built-up bureaucratic baggage, this sector is literally writing its own rulebook in real time.
But while the institutions themselves are entirely new, the cultural roots behind them are incredibly ancient. As Subhashini Chandran points out here, generosity is a deeply ingrained value in the East. Giving is integral to our way of working and living, not just a nice thing to do. Historically, this giving was informal, quiet, and deeply private, often just a way to strengthen immediate community and family relationships. But now, that traditional, integral way of living is actively transitioning into a highly formalized, multi-billion-dollar institutional powerhouse operating on a global scale.
Moving on to Section 2, a uniquely Asian approach. Let's unpack the actual structural makeup of this newly institutionalized wealth. Side by side, the differences in structural DNA between these regions are honestly pretty wild. In North America, a massive 96% of these organizations operate as independent foundations. But over in the Asia-Pacific region, only 54% are independent. A huge 32% are state-linked and 12% are corporate. This tells us something absolutely vital. Asian giving is heavily intertwined with governments and family-owned businesses. Rather than relying almost exclusively on standalone private foundations operating in their own little silos, philanthropy here is often integrated directly into the broader machinery of national development and commerce. So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, it operates through 3 distinct channels. First, you have massive pools of public funds channeled through statutory boards, like the Tote Board in Singapore. Second, you have entities specifically mandated to support broader national development goals. And third, you see highly active corporate CSR and corporate foundations, like Tencent or the Tata Group. Remember, 2/3 of the wealthiest families in Asia are first-generation billionaires. They are still actively running their business empires. For them, it makes so much more sense to give directly through their massive corporations where they already possess world-class logistics, global reach, and top-tier talent, rather than starting a separate foundation entirely from scratch. Which brings us to Section 3, the trust versus measure debate. With billions flowing, how do we know it actually works?
Globally, there is immense friction right now between 2 distinct approaches. On one side, we have trust-based philanthropy. This focuses on providing unrestricted funding, removing administrative burdens, and ceding power directly to the local grantees who are closest to the community's actual needs. On the flip side, we have strategic philanthropy, which is highly data-oriented, donor-driven, and demands strict mathematical measurement of impact, which, let's be honest, often results in endless spreadsheets and bureaucratic headaches for the charities trying to do the work. It usually feels like you have to pick a side, right? Do you blindly trust the charity, or do you demand the hard data?
A lot of folks assume that prioritizing trust inherently undermines accountability, that if you don't track every single penny, you just can't prove your impact. But Asian foundations are stepping up and proving that this is a completely false choice. You do not have to choose between trusting local partners and measuring real impact. Instead, as you can see, they are actively blending the two concepts together into a unified, flexible, and highly effective strategy. Let's dive into Section 4, the MEL Framework Explained, and see how they create this functional harmony. Central to this strategy is MEL, monitoring, evaluation, and learning. Think of it as a continuous feedback loop. It evaluates underlying assumptions, monitors milestones, and allows for constant redesign based on what's actually happening on the ground. By adopting MEL, funders can hold grantees accountable by monitoring intermediate milestones while still deeply trusting those grantees to learn, adapt, and refine their own processes. It's an ongoing cycle of improvement, not some rigid pass-or-fail final exam. It supports the charity instead of suffocating it.
And we see this applied across the continent in 4 really distinct ways, which just goes to show how adaptable ML really is. For accountability, the Tote Board uses it to strictly validate the responsible use of public funds. Meanwhile, for capital allocation, the UBS Optimus Foundation uses it to go hunting for systemic impact unicorns, directing investments to highly scalable initiatives. For continuous learning, Yayasan Hasana leans on qualitative insights and authentic storytelling to iteratively improve community programs. And finally, for advancing the field, the Nippon Foundation maximizes the public visibility of their milestones to share widespread insights for collective progress. They all customize the measurement approach to fit exactly what they need.
Finally, Section 5, Trust and Measure. Let's look at how this scales up in a high-profile, real-world case study. Take Tencent, for example. The sheer scale of their ambition is mind-blowing. They pledged a staggering $15.5 billion to their Sustainable Social Value Initiative, or SSV. Now, to make sure this incredible sum of money actually drives change, they use an internal guideline called the Scale, Quality, Impact, or SQI framework. They leverage their massive digital ecosystem, including platforms like WeChat, as a backbone to track real-time progress. But crucially, they do all of this while simultaneously empowering local Igniter grantees. They provide the trust and the capital to let local leaders spearhead proof-of-concept projects, completely backed by the tech infrastructure to monitor everything iteratively. By combining rigid frameworks like scale, quality, and impact with deep, authentic trust in the folks on the ground, Asian organizations are proving something genuinely revolutionary. They're proving that rigorous, data-driven evaluation and grassroots community empowerment absolutely do not have to be enemies. When implemented thoughtfully, they operate flawlessly as a single, unified mechanism, capable of tackling massive social challenges efficiently. As the center of philanthropic pravity shifts east, bringing tens of billions of dollars and completely new structural approaches to the table, we want to leave you with this final thought. If trust and measurement can successfully coexist to drive Asia's $33 billion philanthropic boom, how will this hybrid model reshape giving in your own backyard? How might this powerful fusion of trust and data fundamentally change the way we solve problems right in our own communities? It is a fascinating paradigm shift, and it shows us that the future of global giving might just be found in this unique blend of cultural trust and modern measurement. Something to think about.